One of the hardest videos I've had to film of late. That is because it is a very difficult topic to talk about. A lot of people who are successful or productive, they get into this thing called flow state. You might be thinking what flow state is. Have you ever tried focusing on something that you wanted to achieve, whether it was a task, whether it was a project, maybe it was something that you wanted to be complete in a certain time frame, and you thought it would take you 90 minutes, but instead of it taking 90 minutes, it took anything from more than 8 hours to days, weeks, months, or even years. You see, there is something that a lot of successful people or people who are productive that do, because behind every productive, successful person, they use flow state. Now you're probably thinking, what exactly is flow state? Is this new fangled contraption that people use? No. Flow state, the ability to concentrate for long periods of time on a task that might be a little bit difficult. Think about it like this. Marie Curie discovered radioactivity. She was in flow state. Einstein discovered relativity when he was in flow state. Charles Dickens was in flow state when he wrote all his 15 books. C.S. Lewis was in flow state when he wrote the Chronicles of Narnia. That basically is what flow state is. Now, there's a reason why a lot of us struggle with flow state. When we're doing something that makes us uncomfortable or that's a little too difficult, we feel squeamish, right? We feel very uncomfortable. What happens is cortisol and norepinephrine gets released into our bloodstream, right? And that makes us even more afraid or fearful of the task at hand. Now, the secret here is that despite them feeling squirmish, despite them feeling uncomfortable, they still went ahead to conquer that feeling. And what happened with that, when they persisted through the struggle, through the hardship, through the uncomfortability of it all, dopamine got released into their bloodstream. Trying to condense flow state, what it is and what it isn't, in a 2-minute segment so I don't bore you, is a little difficult. And that is why this might be the hardest video I've done of yet. However, today is not about what flow state is. It's about how you can master flow state. How exactly can you get into this thing of flow state? Now that you know what flow state is, right? Why is flow state important? First of all, flow state basically is being in the zone. Imagine you are literally thinking about becoming a musician. In order for you to become a musician, you need to get past the uncomfortability of not knowing your instrument, get past beginner pain burst, right? You know, that period of in our lives where we're scared to do something because we're new at it. You have to get past that in order for you to master the keyboard, master whatever instrument you're working on, and get into the zone. The best pieces of music, right? Whether it's classical music, whether it's jazz, whether it's pop, country, whatever it is, right? Often is because of flow state. Because that person got in the zone where nothing else mattered, when nothing else existed. All that mattered was the task at hand. So now you need to be able to understand it, right? You need to be able to master it. First of all, what is the golden rule of flow state? Basically, the golden rule of flow state is don't overanalyze, don't procrastinate, don't allow analysis paralysis, right? To stop you from creating something that is masterful. A lot of us struggle with this thing where we're working on something and our inner critic, right? It comes and tells us, no, what you're working on is nonsense. What you're working on is foolish. What you're working on doesn't make any sense. When you look at the greatest writers, when you look at the greatest filmmakers, when you look at the greatest jazz musicians, pianists, NBA players, they concentrate for long periods of time, even if they get it wrong. Even if they get it wrong, they still keep doing it. It's not like they pause and stop and analyze what they're doing. No, they keep going forward. And that's the golden rule of flow state. You need to keep going forward. You need to focus on the task at hand. You need to take and zip, right? Zip your inner critic so that your inner critic does not disturb you when you're in a flow state. Now, another thing that we need to also talk about here is you got to train your brain. Basically what this means is a lot of us don't train our brain. When something is too difficult, when something is too hard, we let it go, we let it slip. We are like, nah, I can't do this. When I was writing my first book, my first actual professional book, I remember thinking to myself that I need to zip my inner critic. So I wrote regardless whether it was nonsense. I did not write and then delete what I wrote, because that can disrupt your flow state, right? I just kept writing and I kept writing and kept writing. Eventually I got to a period where I had written something that maybe I did not agree with, but I had written something. I had finished and I had accomplished what I wanted to do. So sometimes in life you gotta shut your inner critic. Actually, most times when it comes to flow state, you gotta shut your inner critic so that you can focus on the task at hand. Another thing is you gotta schedule your time. Now, you can do this in a lot of ways. You could do time blocking to help you get into flow state. As a person with ADHD, time blocking is essential for me. I know during a week what day is set for what. I know during what the time will be, what I do, what I want to do. And that helps me focus, that helps me concentrate, that helps me get into the zone of doing what I want to do, because I know for a fact that if I do this at this particular time, I'm going to be more productive than if I don't, right? A perfect example is most writers are early risers. And I know that's kind of a bit of a tongue twister, but most writers are early risers. Basically what this means is if you want to be the most productive when it comes to your writing career, or when you want to write, you need to write in the morning because there are less distractions and you're more focused and you can actually get into the zone a lot quicker. So another thing that you got to do is when you schedule your time is figure out what works best for you. When are you the most alert? When are you the most active? When is it when your brain is the most hyper? And that's when you have to look at your day and your calendar and sort of tick the time frames, right? Tick when you are most alert, tick when you're most hyper, tick when you're most active, okay? Another thing you gotta do in order for you to actually get into flow state is you gotta limit your distractions. We live in a busy world, right? Hyper busy, right? And often at times with a concentration when we have a phone, when we have email, right? When we have so many distractions going out through the day that it can be difficult to sit down and concentrate and get into flow state. This is why it's so important and so critical that you can limit your distractions. So this can look here different for different people, right? One of the things is you could maybe shut off your phone during a particular period, maybe not look at your email during a particular period, maybe make sure that when you time block your stuff, you know, maybe from 6 to 8 you're working on a particular thing, and then the rest of the day you can focus on anything else. That can help you because the more distractions you have, the less focused you are. And the less focused you are, the harder it is to concentrate. And the harder it is to concentrate, the harder it is to get into the zone. And the harder it is to get into the zone, the more difficult it is to get into flow state. Flow state is basically when you are so hyper focused and when you're so much in the zone that nothing can disturb you. And you basically, ideas just flow a lot easier when you're in a flow state. Okay, so now that I've basically how to get into flow state, there are the challenges that come with flow state. Because let's be honest with you, getting into that kind of hyper focusedness isn't easy for a lot of us. We struggle with it. So the challenges you might face along the way is you might get burnt out. You might get frustrated, right? You might feel as if you're not living to your full potential, because at the end of the day, that is what it is, right? We all want to live to our full potential. We all want to get ahead, get past the goalposts, past the obstacles, and reach atop of that hill. Every successful person, literally every successful person, has been where you are right now. Now, one of the things that has helped me, and I'm sure will help you, is you gotta understand what is your purpose behind it all. Flow state is great, right? Flow state is great. But the most difficult things in getting flow state is if you don't have a big reason, a big why attached to flow state, it becomes harder to get into flow state. If you're just doing something just for the sake of doing it, you're gonna give up because human beings aren't wired to do that. We're not wired to just do something. Think about Marie Curie, right? She wanted to prove a point. She wanted to do something that a lot of her peers and colleagues thought was not possible. And she discovered radioactivity. Albert Einstein was made fun of. He literally left school. He struggled with school. Most people thought he was stupid. And this man discovered relativity. Think about any great person. They had a big why, a big reason to why they were doing something. Leonardo da Vinci was known as a whack, a kookadoo, a crazy person. And yet, he focused so much on his talent, so much on discovering new ideas and phenomena, that he became one of the greatest minds to ever exist. When you understand why you're doing something, it helps you. Alan Turing wanted to help the efforts, right, in World War II. The first one to create the first actual true computers because of him. Now, he had a big reason why he wanted to do it. That's why it's so important that you understand why you're doing it. Doing it just for the sake of doing it is not going to help you get in flow state. Doing it just for the sake of, brownie points, or, to just achieve something, it's great and all, but you gotta have a big reason, a big why attached to it. Are you doing it for your business? Are you doing it for your success? Do you want to start something new? Do you want to change your career course, right? Do you want to do something profoundly different than anyone else? Do you want to impact the world? Do you want to help your family? When you understand why you're doing something, everything clicks, everything flows. It becomes easier for you to achieve it because you understand why you're doing it. Things that you need to realize when you're in flow state is you got to take breaks, because sometimes it's difficult for you to actually stay in that particular state. So you got to take breaks, because you got to then rejuvenate, you got to drink water, you got to go for a run, a walk, whatever you want to do, right? So that you are revitalized. You must understand though, our brain is like a battery. When you don't actually recharge your battery, it goes flat, and this leads to burnout. This is one of the challenges that often a lot of people who want to get into flow state forget. It's also the reason why people like Hemingway, who was always constantly in flow state, well, not constantly, but he was in flow state a lot, used to drink a lot because he would always get burnt out. Now, this is so important for you to remember, right? Take breaks to recharge your natural battery, which is your brain. So once you finish what you're doing, if you work for 2 to 3 hours, take a break, go for a recharge, watch something, lean back, rest, so that you can come back to it more refreshed. Alright, thank you so much for watching, and if you haven't, please like and subscribe so you're always notified whenever a new video comes out.